presidential historian, Dr. Laura Ellen Smith. Hi, Doctor. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. School children will be learning about what happened yesterday for decades to come. How do you think it will be reflected?
Well, it's certainly a historic day. Yesterday, unprecedented has been the word that has been used and reused, and that's absolutely accurate in the sense of no, obviously, ex-president or sitting president has been indicted before. So the way that I think, certainly in the long term that it could be looked at is obviously, aside from a pub quiz question, is the idea that this actually is very meaningful in terms of the American justice system being representative for all, not just for the few, but regardless of how much wealth or power or connections you have, that you're still going to be held to account. So I think it is symbolic for progress, perhaps, in the long term.
OK, I mean, he is the first, as we've been banging on about for the last several weeks, let's say. But there have been others that have come close to it in the past, haven't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about Richard Nixon, he obviously resigned and left office to avoid impeachment when the writing was on the wall that his Republican Party he'd lost their support. He knew he was going to be convicted by the Senate. Then he was out. And obviously, he was pardoned by his successor, Gerald Ford, so he never had to face any charges whatsoever. Bill Clinton is another one in the past 50 years. And Bill Clinton, obviously, even more recently, in 1998, was impeached by the House. And again, the American voters reacted to that very differently in the sense that most of them saw the Republican House as being gone too far, as having obviously impeached him for perjury, and saying that actually, that they didn't feel that it was serious enough to reach that high crimes and misdemeanors, very vague constitutional standard required for removal from office. So we have seen changes in terms of how impeachment has been interpreted and used. Some would say that in the past 30 years, a more hyper-partisan approach has impeachment become simply a partisan tool. This is a question that we have to look at moving forward. But I think the greatest concern recently with Donald Trump being unprecedented in having been impeached twice, the only president to be impeached twice by the House, and not removed, not face any consequences, be able to run again in 2024, was I think a lot of people had concerns that that meant impeachment was somehow meaningless, that you would never be able to hold an ex-president or president to account. And so we do see progress in that sense. And, even regardless of what goes forward with this particular case and whether some people feel like the charges aren't that strong, that's what a lot of commentators are saying, regardless of that, the symbolism here is great.
I was just thinking, as you were talking about pardons and the fact that Gerald Ford pardoned a blanket pardon for Nixon, we could find President Trump potentially running, becoming president, convicted. Can he then pardon himself? Obviously not. But whoever is president, he could be given a blanket pardon, couldn't he?
Well, not for these charges. That's the interesting thing, because they're
Okay.
state charges. So you can't actually be pardoned for state charges. You can be a felon and be president, which would be another unprecedented situation. However, if he ends up facing those federal charges, that the report on the insurrection on January 6th, when that report is finished, if it does end up being the consequence that federal charges are filed, then that could stop him becoming president. But that is a long way off. And obviously, the report hasn't even been completed yet. So in terms of timing, this is a very tricky thing. We were talking yesterday about the timing of the current court case and how that's going to impact 2024. The timing of other charges, if they come from Georgia, if they come from the DOJ, could have a major impact, especially the DOJ ones.
Absolutely fascinating stuff. I don't know whether you stayed up late or got up early for us. Either way, we appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Fascinating stuff, isn't it? We'll return actually to President Trump and that speech at Mar-a-Lago. I will play it to you in full 9:30, so very shortly. Trust me, it's box office. It's definitely worth sitting down and giving half an hour of your time up for.